Yeah, Achyut Prabhuji, whenever you're ready, you can start, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hmm.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Sri Prabhupada. Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 12, Text 11 through 22. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayesu Avadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Text 11. All the rules and regulations apply equally to the householder and the sannyasis, the member of the renounced order of life. The grihastha, however, is given permission by the spiritual master to indulge in sex during the period favorable for procreation. Text 12. Brahmacharis or grihasthas who have taken the vow of celibacy as described above should not indulge in the following: applying powder or ointment to the eyes, massaging the head with oil, massaging the body with hands, seeing a woman or painting a woman's picture, eating meat, drinking wine, decorating the body with flower garlands, smearing scented ointment on the body, or decorating the body with ornaments. These they should give up. Text 13 to 14. According to the rules and regulations mentioned above, one who is twice born, namely a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya, should reside in the Gurukul under the care of a spiritual master. There he should study and learn all the Vedic literatures along with their supplements and Upanishads, according to his ability and power to study. If possible, the student or disciple should reward the spiritual master with the remuneration the spiritual master requests, and then following the master's order. The disciples should leave and accept one of these ashramas, namely the Grihastha ashrama, Vanaprastha ashrama, or Sannyasa ashrama as he desires. Text 15. One should realize that in the fire, in the spiritual master, in one's self, and in all living entities, in all circumstances and conditions, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, has simultaneously entered and not entered. He is situated externally and internally as the full controller of everything. Text 16. By practicing in this way, whether one be in the brahmachari, grihastha, ashrama, vanaprastha ashrama, or sannyasa ashrama, one must always realize the all-pervading presence of the Supreme Personality, Supreme Lord. For in this way, it is possible to understand the absolute truth. Text 17. O King, I shall now describe the qualifications for a Vanaprastha one who has retired from family life. By rigidly following the rules and regulations for the Vanaprastha, one can easily be elevated to the upper planetary system known as Maharloka. Text 18. A person in Vanaprastha life should not eat grains grown by tilling of the fields. He should also not eat grains that have grown without tilling of the field, but are not fully ripe. Nor should a Vanaprastha eat grains cooked in fire. Indeed, he should eat only fruit ripened by the sunshine. Text 19. A Vanaprastha should prepare cakes to be offered in sacrifice from fruits and grains grown naturally in the forest. when he obtains some new grains, he should give up his old stock of grains. Text 20. A Vanaprastha should prepare a thatched cottage or take shelter of a cave in a mountain only to keep the sacred fire, but he should personally practice enduring snowfall, wind, fire, rain, and the shining of the sun. Text 21. The Vanaprastha should wear matted locks of hair on his head and let his body hair, nails, and mustache grow. He should not cleanse his body of dirt. He should keep a water pot, deer skin, and a rod, wear the bark of a tree as a covering, and use garments colored like fire. Text 22. Being very thoughtful, a Vanaprastha should remain in the forest for 12 years, 8 years, 4 years, 2 years, or at least 1 year. He should behave in such a way that he will not be disturbed or troubled by too much austerity. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Achyut Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll offer briefly prayers and then continue. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Destarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, it's a very nice section. Krishna's mercy that I got to read this section today also. Um, the there are three broad themes in this section. One is the conclusion of general instructions for ashramas after describing about brahmacharis, about the dangers of sex life like that. And then following that, how brahmachari's purpose of education and training for brahmachari, and then how does he graduate, what does he do at graduation, like that is described. And what is the purpose of all these varnashmas is to understand Krishna. That is the next set of section that talks about inconceivable nature of Krishna also. And then following that, we hear about Vanaprastha's, some principles related to Vanaprastha living. So overall, we know this section is a discussion between Narada Muni and Yudhishthira Maharaj. What are they discussing? Yudhishthira Maharaj asked about Sanatan Dharma and Varnashram Dharma in the previous chapter. So we heard about Sanatan Dharma in the previous chapter and the different Varnas in the previous chapter. What are the different Varnas? Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishya and Sudra. Different occupations like that. So that we heard in the last chapter. And in this chapter onwards, in this 12th chapter, we are hearing about different ashramas. Primarily in this chapter, we heard so far about brahmachari ashrama, that means the first stage of spiritual life. Generally, first 25 years of life is considered as brahmachari life like that. Then next 25 years is considered like as grihastha. And then next 25 years, 50 to 75 is considered like vanaprastha. And then 75 to 100 is considered as sannyasa ashrama like that. Obviously, we'll know more about this in this section. These are general guidelines, not a rigid timeline everybody needs to follow. But generally, very close to this timeline is good like that. So that is a brahmachari. So this chapter is explaining about brahmachari ashram and vanaprastha ashram. And the next couple of chapters will talk about grihastha ashram and sannyasa ashram also. And then final chapter will give the general principles to go back to Godhead like that. So we're going toward the end of the last 4 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam 7th Canto. So going to this particular context now, so we heard about how brahmachari needs to follow different principles. Brahmachari need to be trained in such a way to practice spiritual life for rest of the life like that. I wanted to highlight a few of the key things from the previous section by looking at Burjan Prabhu's guide, because he gives nice headlines. So that is simple to follow what exactly we heard in the last section. So he describes, first verse is talking about the student learns brahmachari, that is the student life. He learns sense and mind control, which is important for the rest of the life in spiritual life. Second verse he describes a student imbibes a transcendental goal. That means he understands why he is doing what he is doing. For ultimate purpose is to realize Krishna, worship Krishna, serve Krishna. And third verse it describes a student learns respect and gratitude. So notice sense and mind control, then knowing the ultimate goal, and then learning qualities of respect and gratitude. Then not only qualities but practical living. Fourth verse, student learned to live simply and satisfied with whatever was provided. This is in the context of he goes out to beg and gives everything to the Guru, and then accepts food only if Guru calls me to eat food. Otherwise, he'll fast. So that is the principle of simplicity and satisfaction is practicing in the student life. Fifth verse describes student becomes humble by begging on their spiritual master's behalf. So this is a cultivation of quality of humility because they're going to beg on behalf of spiritual master. Somebody may think, oh, if they beg, they can eat just like that, right? No, they're practicing to beg for spiritual master, thinking that whatever I get is spiritual master's property. And then they go back and give everything to spiritual master, nothing they'll keep. Only spiritual master gives some food out of that, they will eat like that. That is the practice of humility principle or quality. Then text 6 describes student develop gentleness and good behavior. So this again, good behavior and gentleness in terms of dealing with other uh, opposite gender, for example, and in terms of controlling the senses like that. So gentle behavior they're learning, and what is good behavior they're learning. That is achar. Then seventh to 12th verse are describing about um, dangers of male-female interactions and how one should be careful in interacting with women, especially for brahmachari, but is applicable for other ashramas also. We know in Vedic culture, brahmacharis and sannyasa ashram especially are meant to follow uh, rigid strictures or regulations around interaction with women like that. But the principles apply for grihastha and vanapastha also in terms of understanding the dangers of that interaction with women or opposite gender, and then being careful in pursuing spiritual life. So that section we discussed from 6 to 11 so far, 10. Today 11th and 12th are also continuing on that particular theme. So about interaction with the opposite gender or women in this scenario. So basically in the 11th verse we are hearing uh, all these rules and regulations apply equal to Grihasthashram, Vanapasth and Sannyasashram also, like that is saying. Then somebody may say, oh, I'm married, I'm a Grihastha, so I have license for sex life. Somebody may consider like that. That's why scriptures are giving explicit indication here also. In the direct translation or verse itself is saying, Grihastha is given permission by the spiritual master to indulge in sex during the period favorable for procreation. So some important principles we can learn from this verse. Prabhupada is highlighting in the purport also. One principle is Grihastha life is not a license for sex life. Why that statement is used like that? Because generally sex life is considered contrary to growing in spiritual life. Generally sex life. So what does it mean? Because spiritual life, growing in spiritual life also includes detachment in material aspects like that. Spiritual life growth is also includes growing in spiritual conception and getting rid of material conception also. But getting engaged in material desires, material sense gratification, including sexual desire and sexual activity, will only increase the material consumption. So that is contrary to what we are trying to do. So that is the context in which sex life needs to be seen. But we also need to know Prabhupada quotes in the Bhagavad Gita verse in the purport here. He says 7.11 Dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamosmi. So indulgence in sex life without disobedience to the religious rules and regulations constitutes a religious principle. Krishna says, I am the sex life that is conducted religiously, like that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So how do we understand that? That the way to understand that is sex life conducted by religious principles means we take permission of spiritual master and then conduct Garbhadana Samskara and then engage in sex life for the purpose of procreation. That is why the verse says during the period favorable for procreation, like that. For creating a good progeny, for that purpose we engage in sex life. That's what Prabhupada is emphasizing in the purport. That is main principle for us as devotees. So that is the first aspect he emphasizes. Second aspect he emphasizes in the same context is that in spiritual life we need to take the guidance of Guru for everything that we are doing. If we don't take guidance of Guru, then we'll go astray, thinking that I'm doing the best thing, but we may not be doing the best thing. Because what our mind thinks is a good thing may not be good according to Guru Sadhu Shastra. So that's why Prabhupada is emphasizing our spiritual life is conducted by the orders of Guru, like that. That principle is sharing. And he connects that to the verse theme here, which is to have sex life for procreation only. So Prabhupada is emphasizing that even in the Grihastha ashram, because we are conducting spiritual life under spiritual master's guidance and order, Grihastha should not indulge in sex life without the order of Guru, like that. Prabhupada is emphasizing in the purport. In the 12th verse, this concludes the section about this topic or theme, where he's saying those brahmacharis are grihasthas. Note carefully. Those brahmacharis are grihasthas who have taken the vow of celibacy should follow these things he is describing. That means generally it is understood grihasthas are also following celibacy except for creating progeny. Number one. Number two, if we want to maintain the vows of celibacy, then we need to understand what is the safety net for following the celibacy. That means we understand what are the general principles that help us in following the celibacy. So then we get trained in that aspects from our mentor and guru, and we follow those in that in our life so that we can celibacy can continue uninhibited or favorably for Krishna consciousness, like that. So there are several things we can learn, but here the primary aspects being talked about is how not. I'm talking at the principle level, not the details that are given in the verse. Principle level, not engage in lavish luxuries, for example, for the body. Number one, that one principle I can see here. Second principle is talking about how we don't make ourselves supremely attractive, very highly attractive for opposite gender, for example. Those are two broad principles being taken here. But the higher principle we need to extract from this is that we follow the principles that help us to maintain the celibacy, like that. So those could include not eating too much food, for example, or not eat. That doesn't mean don't eat enough. I'm not saying that. Too much food means too much that more than what is necessary for the body, more than what is necessary for good health. That's what I mean. And then including things like sleeping too long, for example, that can also affect celibacy. And eating too much at night time, that can also affect celibacy, for example. So, like those kind of things that we can learn and follow properly. Now, we're transitioning to the next section, which is how a brahmachari, what is the purpose of study of a brahmachari? What is the kind of curriculum that they have for brahmachari? And then how do they graduate from their Gurukula like that? So even though some of these things appear to be, oh, in the ancient days they used to do like that, we can understand the principles and apply in our own life and help our children also with these principles. So what is the main purpose of education that is emphasized in this verse and purport also? Main purpose of education is to study Vedic literatures. Every Varna and Ashrama, they all meant to study the Vedic literature. So, of course, each of us has different levels of intelligence and capacity. For example, somebody may be so great in terms of intelligence, they can understand very, very deep philosophy things also. But some of us may not have such intelligence like the other people. So, we can understand something. So, we still need to, according to our capacity, we need to study the Vedic literature and understand with the guidance of Guru. That is important. So, that is one of the main principle is emphasized in the verse and also in the purport by Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada says, Sudras are not enjoined to read scriptures. And similarly, Antejas is the word used from previous section where people are mixed classes. That means people, Brahmana marries a Kshatriya, Kshatriya marries a Brahmana, like that kind of things we discussed, right? Those are called mixed classes or Antejas. They are also exempted from reading scriptures like that. So, but the principle for all of us is we're all meant to read scriptures so we can develop Shastriya Shraddha, Drida Shraddha. That means strong faith we can develop from scriptures. And that is what we get actually from our Guru, Shraddha in scriptures. That means Shraddha means Shastriya Shraddha, like that is described in scriptures. So that Shraddha we get through reading of scriptures. So, for example, I might read the same Bhagavatam verse, but I might understand at some level. But my spiritual master reads the same scripture, same verse, he will get a higher level of realization. That is okay, that is understandable, that is expected. But we need to read and understand to our level. And wherever we do not understand, we can ask questions to try to understand whatever we can. For example, in my early days, I'm only telling this principle for a principle only, not to share about me. So in the early days, I would not understand many things, but I just hear and I still keep the questions with me. I did not understand this. And then I used to ask questions whenever possible to my mentor and guru. Then they used to explain me answer. In fact, they explained me one question 10, 20, 30, 40 times like that. But still I did not get it. But still I remained with the question and while still practicing the sadhana. So then slowly over time, Krishna revealed the answers to me. Again, not like, oh, Krishna personally comes to me and shares with me, not like that. Through devotees, through Shastra, we'll get the answers like that. So point is, we try to understand whatever we can while understanding that Krishna will reveal over time this thing. And at the same time, we don't leave that question altogether. That way, Krishna will reveal us through Shastra or Guru or Sadhu at appropriate time as we grow in Bhakti. So that's what Prabhupada is talking about, the first aspect of these verses. And the another aspect is what happens after Brahmachari life is completed. So this is important to understand. In Vedic culture, Brahmachari is practiced in Gurukula with the Guru. That means they are not there with parents. At that time, at the end of Brahmachari study, Guru would have understood, okay, this student is suitable for continuing Brahmachari life for the rest of the time. And then he can take sannyas later on. That means permanent Brahmachari life he would accept. He will guide him accordingly. Then student would actually stay there with Guru only in that scenario as Brahmachari. He doesn't go back to home at all. That's a possibility is there. And we hear this in the ninth canto also in the pastime of Ambarish Maharaj's father, Nabhaga, Nabhaga, son of Nabhaga, like that. So where they thought that he will not come back. And then all the brothers took away all the wealth of his father, thinking that he took so much time in Guru, so he's not going to come back. He'll stay brahmachari like that. So that is one possibility. Okay. But there is a second possibility that Guru and student may decide that I would like to pursue Grihastha ashram. That means go back to home and get married, having been trained in Vedic culture properly. So that is the second possibility also is there. This is important to understand because sometimes when a brahmachari gets married, people will think, oh, he's such a fallen devotee, he's done such a abominable thing that some people may think. That's the incorrect understanding. Some brahmacharis may want to practice the whole life as brahmacharya and they may take up sannyasi if they are suitable. Second category is they may take up grihastha life afterward also. And the brahmachari training they got is not waste. Because brahmachari training, we heard how they're getting trained in humility, simplicity, satisfaction, surrender to Guru. They're practicing all these principles now. Sense control, mind control. They're all valuable for Grihastha ashram also. So that is another aspect being told here. That they may take Grihastha ashram and then go to Vanapastha and then Sannyasa like that. So that's about 14th verse. Now 15th and 16th verse go to a different theme, but important theme, interesting theme. Of course, little philosophical also. Basically, 15th and 16th are talking about what is the purpose of all these varnas and ashramas anyway, ultimately. That is to understand Krishna. But how do we understand Krishna? First level of understanding is how Krishna is all pervading, how Krishna is in everything, that aspect. Then, through that understanding, ultimately we get to the higher realization of understanding there is a Bhagavan feature of the Supreme Lord who is beyond everything that we see and experience here also. So that is the other aspect also. So in other words, these two verses are giving the understanding of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. That means how Krishna is and his energies are one and also simultaneously different from each other like that. So Prabhupada quotes Madhvacharya's quote in this section, and also he quotes a couple of Bhagavad Gita verses that emphasizes the inconceivable nature of Krishna, that emphasizes the omnipresence or presence of Krishna everywhere, and what is the highest realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead also Prabhupada emphasizes. So I will wish to cover a little bit because I was reading that section and hearing that section about previous chapter in the ninth and 10th chapter, Prahlad Maharaj prayers to Narasimhadev also touch on this subject. I'll briefly touch on it. And Bhagavad Gita verses are also quoted in this section by Prabhupada. Essentially, our understanding as devotees is that Krishna is spread everywhere in this world as Brahma Jyoti or as his energies, and he is the controller and maintainer of everything. So that is one principle we know. But apart from that principle, that Advaitavadis only think about that principle, we also know another principle, which is Krishna is not only spread everywhere through his energies, that doesn't mean Krishna has disappeared. Krishna is still there in his original form as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is still experiencing all the bliss in relation with his devotees in the spiritual world also. So that is the other aspect we learn from our philosophy. Krishna is spread everywhere through his energies. Krishna is also simultaneously present in the spiritual world and anywhere as is in his original form also at the same time simultaneously. And that is possible because Krishna is Supreme Lord. Krishna is infinite. He can do anything. So he can be present here, he can be present there also. I cannot be inside the home, I cannot be outside the home at the same time. But Krishna can simultaneously be present as Brahmajyoti and he can simultaneously present as in different spiritual incarnations, spiritual forms also, spiritual expansions also at the same time, in different spiritual planets, for example. That is possible for Krishna. So that is the theme from this section. Now going to the last section of this theme, which I loved studying because I wanted to study. This is in my to-do list to read. But today, by Krishna's mercy, I got this opportunity to read again one more time. I read long time ago because I wanted to read about Vanaprastha Ashram. So this section is giving different. Okay, maybe I'll talk about the two portions of this section first. In the 17th verse, by practicing Vanaprastha Ashram very, very nicely after Grihastha, what happens? We can go back to Maharloka. But is Maharloka in spiritual world? No. Maharloka is in material world only. is the higher planets before Brahmaloka and the upper planetary systems. So that is one principle being shared here. Now, the second rest of the verses are describing how a Vanaprastha should live a austere life, how Vanaprastha should tolerate different things in the material world like that. That's what is being described. So instead of going through the detail of each of the verses, I'll share with you the principles of Vanaprastha that Prabhupada shares not only in this section, but in rest of the Srimad Bhagavatam also he shares wonderful principles of Vanaprastha. So we'll talk about those in a higher level. So essentially, the foundation principle of taking up Vanaprastha life after practicing Grihastha or married life for some time is usually in the range of 50 years. Some say, in some purpose, Srila Prabhupada write at 55. It's not a rigid timeline, but the essential principle is that we've been engaged in family life. The moment we're engaged in family life, we're getting attached to different things. There's always a possibility of getting attached to different comforts, getting attached to different material desires, engaging with different material desires. That danger is there. That possibility is there in family life or grihastha life. So vanaprastha life is meant to gradually go away from the attachment we developed in grihastha life. That means cultivating detachment from the those attachments or those luxuries we got attached to during grihastha life. But for what purpose? So that we can spend our time, energy, and enthusiasm more for cultivating spiritual life, for cultivating spiritual advancement, for cultivating spiritual growth, and for contributing to society for other spiritual growth also. That is the purpose of Vanapasta life. Not necessarily going to the forest, not necessarily not eating any cooked food, not necessarily practicing severe austerities. That is not the essence of Vanaprastha life. Essence of the Vanaprastha life is to cultivate spiritual advancement and growth for ourselves and help others in spiritually growing. So to cultivate spiritual advancement, the necessary austerities and tolerance and detachment will help in that in Vanaprastha life. So that is the essence of Vanaprastha life. And how that can be practiced in this day and age, it may not be practical to practice by going to the forest and living in a cave like it is described here. But it can practice in many ways. But the essence principle is to help in favorable way to growing spiritually. That is the essence. So couple of models, few models that are practiced by devotees I'll share. One model is going to holy place like Vrindavan, Mayapur, like that, and then staying there close to the temple, close to the devotees, in the association of devotees, not alone, and then practicing devotion service. That is one way, one model. And another model is staying within the US, for example, stay close to the temple where there's a facility for vanaprasthas to engage in some kind of service and still practice devotion service like that. So that's another model also given like that. And of course, third model based on the circumstances of particular person, they may stay wherever they are, but engage in some kind of sadhana to grow better and some kind of seva to help the society also in spiritual ways like that. Those are different models like that can be taken up. But essence principle of Vanaprastha is that. So now many of us may be thinking, I'm not so old yet to take Vanaprastha, so what am I supposed to do? What we're supposed to do as Grihastha now to prepare for Vanaprastha is to practice developing a taste for a spiritual activity. Number one, that comes by doing proper sadhana regularly. That is the number two. So that is one kind of preparation we can do. Second kind of preparation we can do is how we can financially not be continuing to work at 60 years, 65 years, 70 years, 75 years. I don't need to keep on working. How I can stay financially stable so that way I can practice I can dedicate my time, energy, and enthusiasm for spiritual life instead of making money, making money, making money, making money like that. So there are certain choices we need to make now so that we can practice Vanaprastha at certain stage of our life journey like that. That's how we can practice now. So I'll pause here. So we'll talk about brahmachari life, how it helps grostha life and sannyas life and Vanaprastha life. And we talked about how it's important for everyone to be careful with association of opposite gender. And then we talked about importance of Vanaprastha life. And we talked about certain principles of Vanaprastha life and how we can prepare for Vanaprastha life. So next section will continue on Vanaprastha theme some more. It will be a nice section. We'll pause here. श्रीमद् गौतम की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. Thank you, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I
Hare
have one
Krishna.
question. Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhuji, go ahead, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, you said Antarjya, correct? A mixed class.
Correct.
So in this, how that is reflecting in our Kali Yuga? I think everyone is Shudra. We do not have any Antarjya, correct, Prabhuji?
We're actually Antijas in one sense and Sudras in another sense. So Prabhupada, the way he describes those two principles is why are we called Sudras? Because most of us are born without even Garbhadana Samskara. So that means proper Samskaras are not done. That's why we're Sudras like that. In that context, Prabhupada describes as Sudra, number one. Number two, that is about birth. Number two, many of us qualities are lower than Sudras or Sudras. We don't have higher qualities currently. So in terms of guna and karma, if you see, and the nature of occupations we do also is Sudra activities like that. So that is the context in describing how we are Sudras. Now, second context in describing Antejas, in the last section, maybe a couple of classes ago, we discussed that. Actually, Anteja means people who have Brahmanical qualities, they're marrying wife who is Kshatriya qualities, or people who have Kshatriya qualities, but they're marrying wife who has a Sudra qualities. That is happening left and right in Kali Yuga, right? So in that sense, most of us are Antejas also. That means we cannot say, I only have Brahmana qualities, I only have Sudra qualities. We cannot say even that also. So
Prabhuji,
that's why,
99% population Prabhupada quoted like it's all Shudras. So how we are saying like Kshatriya quality versus Brahmana qualities? So that's not able to get it.
oh sure, I explained both the context already, but I will explain in another angle for you. How we are saying that we have Brahmana qualities and Kshatriya qualities is, for example, I have the qualities to plan ahead. I have the qualities of Brahmana like cleanliness. I can have the
What happened?
quality of,
I know. It happened yesterday when I was sweeping this one and the other one.
okay, I just muted. So I have the Brahmana qualities like that, for example. And then I have Sudra qualities of I don't like to initiate anything. If somebody tells something, then only I'll do. Otherwise, I don't take any initiative. That is, for example, one of the Sudra quality I have. Then someone might have a Kshatriya quality. That means if somebody is some injustice happens to somebody, their blood boils. They want justice. Like that, I might have Kshatriya quality, for example. Then somebody might have Vaishya quality in the sense that in every situation they will think, oh, if I do this, we can get some profit. So maybe this is the best way we can do. That's how I have Vaishya qualities also.
Okay.
So like that, each of us has some qualities, different qualities, mixture. Make
Mix,
sense?
so mix, so it's all kind of Shudra plus every other qualities also depend on the mode they are working, acting on it, correct?
Correct.
Uh,
Yeah. And it's not
correct.
like a branding or label also. Through devotion, we are actually developing more and more Brahmanic qualities day by day as long as you're practicing properly.
Mm.
So that's also good news for us.
Thank you. Correct.
Most welcome, Prabhuji. Yeah. Okay. Sri Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna, everyone.